going to talk about a single from one of the most criminally underrated bands to ever come out of Europe. That is the band Rage. Now, Rage has been going at this for over 40 years. I don't know how many albums they got, but it's got to be in the mid-20s. I didn't really count. But if there's ever been a band that you look at and respect for their longevity and their consistency, Rage is it. For those of you that have watched the program as a podcast, you know that I've had P.B. Wagner from Rage on this show not long ago, maybe a couple years, 3 years ago. You also know that he has come on my radio show, if you follow the radio show, quite a bit. And this is a band I ended up getting into many, many years ago. I'll tell you the funny story about Rage is that I heard of the band back in the late 90s, heard nothing by them, and looked everywhere for their albums. I had to import pretty much everything. This would have been 97 or 98. And the people that had their records, they didn't have very many copies of them. They were like out of print, like nobody could get them. So I took this chance and bought like 7 or 8 CDs. I'm thinking, wow, I hope I really like this band. And thank God I did. The album that was out at the time was an album called 13. So everything 13 and everything all the way back I found. Noise had actually reissued a lot of the albums too. But you couldn't really, they were hard to get, but I eventually ended up getting them all at once. I had like a stack of like 10 albums. And I ended up finding a reissue of the band Avenger, which was, I think, the first, that was the band before Rage. So I ended up getting those 2 records as well. It was a reissue. And I've loved this band ever since. They're just the epitome of consistency. One of the things Rage has also done a very, very good job of too is when they've integrated their music with classical music. Now, for those of you that may know, obviously this is something Metallica did in the late 90s, but Rage was doing this back in the early 90s. I mean, I don't think Metallica copied off of them, but Rage was doing a phenomenal job at this, and 13 was actually the first real album where they wrote an album that had a lot of these kinds of sounds in it. Classical music, classical instruments, things like that. So they have a new album called Freedom. And lo and behold, I listened to it. Just as good and catchy as anything they've ever done. So I will link that in the show notes. But to be perfectly honest, Peavy is one of the coolest dudes I've ever spoken to. Here's a guy that, Rage is not some huge band like, I don't know, they never got as big as Halloween. They're not like a Metallica. They're probably mid-level, mid-market, maybe. But man, Peavy is still going at it after 40 years. And when you talk to him, the guy feels ageless. Like the guy's just going to go on forever. But I love this band. Hey, everybody. Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching. And if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video. And if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.